What's up nutrition nerds, and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to talk about nutrition for indoor bike workouts. Now we're back to turbo season. If you're anywhere like England, the weather often sucks. It's grey, it's miserable and cold outside, and actually it's just a bit nicer to sweat it out over the turbo. So we're going to go through some nutrition strategies to help you get the most out of your bike workouts. Now I'm going to finish up my session and then we'll get to it. Alright, hey, so if you're new here at Nutrition Triathlon, my name's James and I humbly welcome you to this channel. I work in general practice or family medicine as a clinical practitioner, and I'm currently doing a master's degree in sports and exercise nutrition. My aim is to give you the information about nutrition and whatever topic we talk about in a simple, easy to understand format that you can use. And today we're going to go over carbohydrates and fueling your exercise, fluid, hydration and cooling strategies. So let's get going with the first of today's strategies. If you've listened to my stuff before, then you'll have some idea about carbohydrates and their importance. But if not, I'll give you a whistle-stop tour to give you some context for what we're talking about. Okay, you ready? When you work hard, you use more carbohydrates than fats. When you work really hard, you stop using fats altogether and only use carbohydrates. So if you're aiming for high intensity or hard workouts, you need carbohydrates as a fuel. If you run out of them, you bonk. You've got a store of carbohydrates in your body as glycogen, which you use up in normal day-to-day activities and when you exercise. And you can run out or reach critically low levels of glycogen in your muscle in as little as 90 minutes for hard sustained exercise or 20 minutes for short, high-intensity repeated bouts like sprints. And that only if your carbohydrate stores are well topped up beforehand. Now, I know that might have been a bit of a whirlwind for you, but it's got all the basics you need. If you want to know a bit more about it, then I've linked a video which I've done on carbohydrates where I go into this in more detail. But for now, let's give you some practical strategies that you can use because that's what you're here for, right? This is all based on the most up-to-date research when it comes to performance and cycling. So until proven otherwise, carbs are the king when it comes to exercise with intensity. Now in terms of training like hard repeated sprints, at this moment in time there isn't any specific carbohydrate tip or trick which you can use to improve your performance. Although there are potentially other strategies you can use as we'll cover, but as far as carbs go for repeated sprints, your best bet is to make sure that you're well topped up with carbohydrates before you start. So that's making sure that you do eat a good amount of carbohydrates in your diet and making sure you've had a good carbohydrate-rich meal in the hours before your sprint session. Okay, so moving on to non-sprint based workouts. I've put some guidance here for carbohydrates in a table for you, and you can see how much carbohydrate is recommended for you based on your session length. Now, it's worth mentioning that you don't have to follow this for every session, and actually, it's probably not advantageous to do that and actually follow what we call periodized nutrition. But that's a topic for another time. For now, use this guidance to prioritize your really hard, important sessions. Fuel them properly and get that turbo whirring like a beauty. If it's a really easy session, you're just spinning or you're at something like 60 to 70% of your FTP, you're not going to need heaps of carbs. But if you do decide to use carbs, the choice of how you have them is kind of up to you. The back of any food product should give you some guidance as to how much carbohydrate is actually in it. These will sometimes just be glucose or a mix of glucose and fructose. And either of those are fine realistically. And I have gone into the glucose and fructose side of things more in that carbohydrate video that I mentioned, so you can watch that if you are interested. You want to aim for a carbohydrate that is easily digested by the body. So this is the perfect time for sweets, treats, or energy gels and drinks. Slow release carbohydrates like oats, whole grain bread or pastas aren't that helpful. I mean, I presume you're probably not going to eat a bowl of pasta while you cycle, but who knows. You can stick to the sweet stuff here. And just a final note here on the carbohydrate mouth rinse for the under hour part. If your session is under an hour and you're not doing hard repeated sprints, it's really unlikely that you're actually going to run out of carbohydrates. But there's good evidence that shows something as simple as a carbohydrate mouth rinse, which is exactly how it sounds by the way, is enough to improve performance in something like a time trial. But you don't need to be barbaric about it in your precious pain cave. You don't have to spit it out. But if any of you run as well, it's a really good tip for it. You can improve your performance in events lasting less than an hour simply by doing a carbohydrate mouth rinse. And you don't risk any tummy upset because you haven't swallowed it. Winner! Alright, moving on. So who doesn't love caffeine, especially as a good old coffee? But caffeine is an awesome tool for bike workouts. I mean, it's actually been shown to improve performance in a whole range of sports and scenarios, but it might be a perfect addition to your bike workout. Now, it seems to work by essentially dampening our pain response, so you can tolerate harder efforts better. There are some other potential ways that it can work, but that's mainly the one that we're interested in here. Now let's break down caffeine use for you. First off, when should you have it? Somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour before your workout is a good place to aim for. And how much of it should you have? Well, the current evidence suggests that you can get benefits from somewhere between 1 to 3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. As you start to go past that threshold, you experience more side effects for little to no real performance benefit. So for a 70 kilogram athlete, you want to be aiming somewhere between 70 and 210 milligrams of caffeine. How much is that in real terms? Unfortunately, that's a bit of a tricky question, and I'm going to do a video specifically on caffeine for you. The problem with coffee is that the dose of caffeine in it can vary greatly. But you're probably in the right ballpark with a good strong coffee, brewed or instant. And that's probably the best advice I can give you until I do a proper video on caffeine. So just hang tight. And while we're on that, if you haven't already, then press the subscribe button to stay up to date with everything that I release. And if you've been finding this useful so far, I'd really appreciate it if you gave the video a like. Now, it's worth mentioning two things here. Firstly, if you have a medical condition and you think caffeine might not be safe for you, then don't take it and make sure you go and chat with your doctor first. Secondly, just consider what time of day you take the caffeine. Caffeine does work as a stimulant as well, and it has a half-life of about 5 hours, and that means the dosage in your body reduces by half every 5 hours. So although it might make your bike workout even better, it's probably not worth taking caffeine in the afternoon or evening if it means you can't sleep. But that's something you've got to work out for yourself and see how well you can tolerate it. Now this is an interesting one. Hydration and exercise performance is something that is gathering more and more interest, and there's a lot of research going into the pros and cons of it. Now I could waffle at you for ages about this, but I'll try and keep it short and sweet for you, and I'll do a full video in the future. Now you may have been told to keep yourself really well hydrated during exercise, and there's definitely merit to that. But it also seems like there might be some merit on not focusing too hard on it. It's important and part of the training and racing puzzle, but it's not the only part. Now I'll caveat that by saying the longer your training session or race, the more important hydration becomes. The effects of dehydration on performance and health are much more pronounced the longer the event. Now a quick 101 on hydration for you. Hydration is an intricate thing, and your body is so clever. Its aim is to maintain euhydration, which basically means normal hydration. And part of that is maintaining your blood pressure in a normal range and allowing your body to function as it would like to. The main regulator or contributor to your blood pressure and hydration is an electrolyte called sodium, otherwise known as salt. And that's what you'll find in sports drinks. Where sodium goes, water follows. So when you drink something containing sodium, it encourages water to be absorbed as well, which improves your hydration. You can lose a bit of sodium when you pee, but the main loss during exercise is through sweat. Now, what does this all mean in practical terms for you? If your session is under an hour, you're very unlikely to need any specific fluid rehydration strategy, whether that's just water or water-containing sodium. Drinking to thirst here is perfectly fine. It's as you go longer that it's more important. Unless you have a medical reason not to, if your session is over an hour and it's a sweaty one, it's worth considering fluid with electrolytes. So any of the common sports drinks which are aimed at performance or hydration should have sodium in them. They'll usually have a guideline like consume 1 an hour, and this stands you in pretty good stead to keep your hydration at a good level but not go over the top. Now this is an important one. If you are going super long or super sweaty, then you should make sure that the fluid you have contains sodium and it's not just water. If you do just drink water on its own, then you can dilute the sodium levels in your blood, and this can lead to something called hyponatremia, otherwise known as low sodium levels in the blood, and this can be dangerous. So without a prescribed or personalised hydration plan, follow the guidelines of your rehydration fluid of choice and don't just drink water. As I mentioned, I'm going to do a future video on hydration and really delve into this for you. But this is a bit of a catch-all to make sure that you aren't going over the top with your hydration, but to make sure that you have enough to keep yourself safe. Because we like safe. Safe is good. Which brings me on to water. Is it useful? Well, yes and no. We've covered the hydration part already, but does it have any other benefits? The possible yes answer here lies in your temperature. We know that as our core temperature rises, exercise feels harder and our performance suffers. There's research which seems to suggest that cooling your core body temperature or delaying the rise of it positively helps with performance. Current suggestions include things like cooled or iced water. This helps to cool your core temperature, which then helps with performance. So you could try having cooled or iced drinks or slushies and see if it helps with your performance. And now, my final tip for today isn't necessarily nutrition related, but more of a general tip. If you haven't got loads of fans, get some. I mean, if you haven't already, then I can't imagine what your floor looks like after a hard turbo session. But anyway, it will help keep your body temperature lower and stop your heart rate from spiking up early. And it will help to promote airflow over your body, which will reduce the likelihood of things like saddle sores. And nobody wants saddle sores because they are not fun. And with that, we are at the end of today's video. There was quite a lot of info in there, but I hope it gave you some food for thought and guidance on your turbo sessions. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions because I'd love to hear them. If you did find this video useful, then give it a like and press subscribe. And I'll catch you next time. See ya.